Well, so I decided to be responsible, and I did all the sharing of all the links before I even went live. So probably know what's going to come because it like brings them to a video that's not doing anything, but whatever. Today is Flashback Friday, and I had a special idea because I don't know, sharing my pictures isn't really that exciting, and it's hard to do in this medium. So what I instead decided was I was going to. This is my bag of dice because I'm from Texas now. So this is the Texas flag. It's a velvet. And it's drawstring. It used to have whiskey in it. It no longer has whiskey in it, but I still do have the bottle of whiskey. I just wanted the bag. The whiskey's not very good. Okay, and inside it I have a lot of different bags with different dice in it. But what I'm looking for right now is what is called a D100, which is sort of a misnomer. It is not one die. A D100 is two D10s, one that has the 10s marked and one that does not. Let's see. I have a matching D10. I also, well, sort of unfortunately, due to the situation, I had just bought all these really pretty dice. I don't know which one's the plural. I don't know. And was gonna have all these beautiful dice to play role play games with, but you know, now all my role playing games are online, so no rolling my cute dice for me. Okay, I cannot find the matching D10, which suggests to me that I don't have the matching D10, which is not that big of a deal. Oh jeez, I don't want to drop the D12. Oh no! Okay. Now you are learning how squeaky my chair is. That's fine. Just any D10. Just give me. There we go. There's one. Okay. Well, put it. Okay, this one. This one is D10. Okay. Okay. So we got a D100. A D100 is two D10s. One has the 10s marked, and one just has 0 through 10, or 0 through 9. So what will happen is if I get, it is 0 through 10. Does this have a 10 on it? Oh, okay, now I see, because it's got less. 10, wait, no. Oh, yeah, that would make sense. So, wait, does it make sense? Is this really like a D 10 through 110, or? I don't know, man. Okay, anyway. Polyhedrons aside. I am going to roll these, and then I'm going to do some research to see if I can find any interesting or weird or esoteric news from this time ago, this many years ago. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because one of my favorite podcasts was doing this for a little bit, and they thought it was dumb, and I thought it wasn't dumb, and they had a weird time, but I don't think they did it very well, and I think I could do it better, because I don't have a huge audience, so I can I don't have to worry about whether I'm pleasing anybody. The other thing is, they only used a D20, so they could only go back 20 years. I think that's just asking for issues, because, like, yeah, you're going to feel like you should be connected to this news, and you're not going to be connected to this news because no one remembers the weird news, front page news from 6 years ago on a random day. So, April 3rd. I don't know how to read that. Oh, April 3rd. 4 years ago, which would be 2016, April 3rd, 2016. Well, we'll see. Let's go see if we can find any interesting news. If not, we'll just do a mulligan and re-roll it. Pull this out so I can still, no, I want that. Okay. April 3rd, 4/3/2016. Yeah, see, there was like, okay, onthisday.com is a thing I can go to, I guess. Famous deaths isn't what I want to like look at. It was a Sunday. Weird. Yeah, there's this website is dumb. Historical events. Oh man, the Panama Papers were published. Okay, that's too dark. I don't want to talk about that. There is something about a sport, cricket. Yeah, so even though I am not super great at talking about sports regardless, definitely not good about talking about cricket. But let me just read this for you, see if it makes any sense. ICC Women's Cricket T20 World Cup, Eden Gardens, Kolkata, which I think is in India. Hayley Matthews, with 66 from 45 balls, leads West Indies to 149/2, beat Australia 148/5 by 4 wickets with 2 balls to spare. So that's exciting. Oh, The Undertaker beat Shane McMahon in Hell in a Cell. That's interesting. Sort of, yes. Okay, you know what? No, see, this is why I don't like it when it stays really close to now, because like other things that I don't want to remember. So we're gonna roll again. Okay, this is more what I'm talking about. We've got, I gotta put it over here. 97. That's what that means. So 97 years ago, that would be, I'm good at math. 23. It would be 1923. April 3rd, 1923. The Soviet Union announced something. April 1923. The Soviet Union announced that Konstantin Budkovic had been executed on March 31st. So they waited a couple of days to tell everybody. Closing arguments were presented in the William Z. Foster trial. What is William Z. Foster? He was the chairman of the Communist Party in the USA. He was a radical organizer and Marxist politician. I want to see his trial. 1923. The trial of William Z. Foster. Cool. Oh, it's a PDF, so maybe I can look at it. Do you realize, asks the county prosecutor, that the Declaration of Independence is not a part of the law of this land? Why, yes, sir, replied the prospective jury. And, continued Mr. Prosecutor, you realize further, do you not, that I'm just assuming this took place in the South. Do you know that the fundamental right of the American people to revolution, referred to by Mr. Walsh, which is expressed in the Declaration of Independence, is not part of the law? Yes, sir. Do you believe that the criminal syndicalist law is a good law and should be enforced? Yes, sir, replied the man in the jury box, and he was thereupon passed as a fair and impartial juryman to try William Z. Foster on the charge of unlawful assemblage under the criminal syndicalist law, which carries a maximum penalty of 10 years of penal servitude. 9 farmers, 1 railroad flagman who has failed to join the union, 1 grocery store clerk, and the wife of a factory superintendent. Sounds like the beginning of a joke. Have answered these questions in this way, and these constitute the jury. 9, 1, 10, 2, 11, 12. So 9 farmers, wow. Do you believe that the government should protect accumulated surpluses of private property? Asks Mr. Gore of the grocer's clerk in a tone of voice that conjures up visions of hordes of Bolsheviks busting in windows and running off with hams and pianos. How are they running off with pianos? I do declare. Do you believe, asks Walsh, that the Declaration of Independence should be suppressed because it advocates the fundamental rights of revolution, if necessary, by force? The state objects. The state also objects to quotations from the political letters of Thomas Jefferson, which the prosecutor calls Jefferson's love letters. The strange hieroglyphics of Thomas Jefferson are less legible now than the writings of Tutankhamun. Oh, okay. So this is I was reading this. I don't even know what it is. Sorry, my nose like super itches because I just showered. So it was published in the Liberator, and it was published in April 1923. So the Liberator, I think I recall, is a socialist magazine, essentially, a socialist periodical from the time. I'm not positive. But that doesn't strike me. I don't know what the socialists and the communists, I don't know that they consider themselves the same, so I don't know why they would be covering it. Anyway, this is clearly an editorial. Officially in this court, the Declaration of Independence is no part of American law. Courts elsewhere have decided that it is, but they don't know it in here in St. Joseph, Michigan. Ooh, this is in St. Joseph, Michigan. So St. Joseph, Michigan is like here. It's actually pretty close to like Indiana, the Indiana border. And I think there's 2 towns right next to each other. One's Benton Harbor and one's St. Joseph. And one is a sort of a tourist town because it's right on a lake, and the other is like across the tracks, so to speak. So evidently this is taking place in St. Joe, Michigan. After the jurors are sworn in, the Assistant State Attorney General, so this is just like a treasure trove. I don't know where. So this was published in the Liberator, Volume 6, Number 4, whole number 60, pages 8 to 12. But this is like a nice PDF. This is not just like a scan of an old document. There are pictures though, which is cool. We will show that the government, United States government, and the state governments are described by the defendants as the capitalist state. We will show that their object was to turn that capitalist society into a communist state. Oh, I said that I thought this was happening in the South, didn't I? But it's okay. People have weird accents up there too. The dictatorship of the proletariat is to be the transitional period. We will show that the workers, I don't know what that was, and only the workers are to take charge of the state. And that means that the state of Michigan, and abolish. They would hold to the dictatorship until the people are all educated up to communism, and that then the dictatorship will be abolished and there will be no more need of a state. We will show that the Communist Party of America teaches every worker to hate his employer. His employer teaches him that, that's fine. It teaches the worker to be against his employer, against the capitalist class, and against the man who owns his home. You see here a sketch of Foster's lean, bald head, but it's a big and hairy line of a man, figuratively speaking, that's being presented to the jury. I don't even know what that is referring to. A leader of 280,000 steel workers in a desperate struggle, Michigan, for a gain in daily bread is the Foster against whom the jurors are asked if they are prejudiced. Foster, the spokesman for the packing house workers. Foster, the writer of the marvelous books for working men, is the man presented for condemnation or acquittal. In the same courthouse is going on another trial. It is the one in which the leader of a religious sect, the House of David, it's not House of David, but House of David, is accused of peculiarly earthy spiritual relations with young girls and his colony of bearded followers. Oh man, I'm sorry I haven't read that sentence. We're going to scroll down. I just want to find the closing arguments because that's what happened today. Can I find closing argument? Independent. All right, so that's not gonna work. The prosecutor's brother-in-law, Stanley Banyan, editor of the News Palladium of the twin town Benton Harbor, hey, I know what I'm talking about, went so far as to have the Republican County Convention pass a resolution introduced by himself favoring the conviction of Foster. The Boston Transcript sponsors here an anti-Bolshevik specialist, one F.H. Marvin, who fills columns of the Detroit Saturday Night, a weekly open shop organ circulated here, as well as the Herald Press, with the familiar Burns secret revelations rehashed and intensified for a specific reason. The Foster trial is now taking place. Alan O'Myers, manager of Burns' New York office, is the higher class propagandist visiting here frequently ever since the arrests. A meeting was gotten up for him in October by the combined Rotary Club of Benton Harbor and St. Joseph, in which he has addressed the businessmen, in effect, upon the necessity of convicting Foster. It's interesting. I still don't really know what's up, but also it's interesting how this feels like local news, the way they're talking about it, but it sounds like a sort of a big deal, depending on what the precedent is set. And I don't actually know if it was a big deal, so I'm gonna look it up on Wikipedia again. William, what's that line called? William V. Foster. Oh, interesting. So Foster was the chairman of the Communist Party in the USA from 1945 to 1957. Oh, I think he was also in office from 1924 to 1934. So he was the founding chairman for 10 years and stepped down, I guess. And then came back. Let's see. Oh, organizing the packing house workers. I think that's. But no, 1917. The steel strike of 1919. He's got sort of an eerie looking face. You should look him up. So Foster turned his attention while the packing house campaign was still underway to another project organizing steel workers. The problems here were even more complex. In addition to the history of defeated strikes and the deep ethnic divisions within the workforce, the steel mills were also divided by differences in skills, with the higher paid native-born skilled workers often looking down on their immigrant co-workers, who were often unskilled or only semi-skilled. Foster proposed a similar strategy, but on a much larger scale. A national, similar strategy to the packing house thing that we didn't read. But on a much larger scale, a national campaign led by a union council of all the craft unions and the Amalgamated Association of Iron, Tin, and Steel Workers that would organize all of the basic steel simultaneously. Fitzpatrick agreed to put his name on the project and sent Foster as the CFL's delegate to the AFL's 1918 convention. Now, AFL is American. Ooh, I don't remember. There's a lot of AFL. AFL. Like, I mean, AFL-CIO still exists today. But the CFL is not something that I recognize. AFL means American Federated Labor, maybe. And then Communist Federated Labor. That would be my guess. Or guess. I guessed. Oh, interesting. So he also has roots in the Monongahela Valley. Oh, wait, no. Okay. Oh, man. Crazy. By the time that Foster sent organizers into that area, the Monongahela Valley, which I have also lived in, for the record. I haven't lived in St. Joseph or Benton Harbor, but Monongahela Valley is, well, actually, Monongahela Valley is more western or West Virginia, but I lived next to the Monongahela, so there's a river. But I've also lived in Steel Country, so I know what they're talking about. So by the time that Foster sent organizers to the Monongahela Valley, which has strong overlaps with Appalachia, so coal and steel, very close together. I mean, obviously. By the time he sent organizers to that area several months later, after August of 1918, the influenza epidemic had led the authorities to bar all public meetings. And the announcement of armistice for World War I soon led to widespread layoffs in the mills. Wow. Things were just popping off 97 years ago. Well, this is more than 97 years ago now. The union can no longer rely on a tight labor market or federal government interested in labor peace. So the National Committee for Organizing Iron and Steel Workers managed to sign up more than 100,000 steel workers by early 1919. Interesting, but not what I'm caring about. After his resignation from the National Committee, what? What? Oh, vigilantes expelled Foster from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which at gunpoint, which I lived close to also. Ooh, hey. The National Committee's organizing efforts had produced mixed results. Foster. Where can I see Foster? Anyway, sorry. Well, it enrolled around 350,000 steelworkers during the course of the strike. Its greatest strength was among immigrant workers. Higher skilled native-born workers gave the strike only lukewarm support, while black steelworkers gave it almost none at all in the Pittsburgh area, and less than enthusiastic support elsewhere. Interesting. It's just that in Pittsburgh, there are some things named after a Foster, and I thought it was a different Foster. So now I've got to figure that out. This is turning into like another Wandering Wednesday, but whatever. I don't care. No one's watching, so it doesn't matter. Foster, Pittsburgh. Stephen Foster. That's what yeah. Yeah. Stephen Foster, I think, is who they named it after. I'm not such a huge fan of Stephen Foster. Yeah, the Stephen Foster Memorial. Interesting. The Mysteries of Pittsburgh. Interesting. That looks like a movie I should check out. Yeah. Yeah. Just looks like just Stephen Foster. Stephen Foster, for the record, is unhelpfully sort of known as the father of American music. He wrote things like "Oh Susanna," "Hard Times Come Again No More," and "Canton Races," and "Old Folks at Home." Lots of things that you'd recognize. He's also super into minstrel shows. And, well, I guess I don't know that I can't remember now if he was, or if it's just that his music was really popular with minstrel shows. I think he's really tied to it. Anyway, minstrel shows are sort of an unfortunate part of American history. Not that we should erase, but I don't think that we should be celebrating it and putting up memorials. Well, I mean, he did a lot of other great things, I guess. I don't know. It just seems dumb. There are other people we could be memorializing. We don't have a troubled past. And whose music wasn't used in minstrel shows. Anyway, that is a huge derailment from talking about William Z. Foster. It doesn't really talk about this trial, so I don't think that this trial is a big deal. So in 1920, he left the committee. Just keep talking about the committee. National Committee. I don't know what the National Committee of what was. National Committee. Oh, National Committee for Organizing Iron and Steel Workers. Okay. So he resigned from that in 1920. He also resigned from his position as Brotherhood of Railway Carmen. Oh, he as an organizer with them, but was blacklisted from other jobs on the railroad. He maintained his friendship with John Fitzpatrick, who wrote a book analyzing the steel strike and founded the Trade Union Educational League, which received financial support from the Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America, the left-led union that had contributed $100,000 to relief for steel workers. Foster had contacts with a number of members of the newly formed Communist Party, but had not joined it after it split from the Socialist Party. So that's what I'm talking about. The Socialists and the Communists aren't super close by this point. The party had, in fact, announced him personally during the strike as an opportunist and class collaborator, calling him E.Z. Foster for the accommodations he was willing to make with the AFL leadership. The Communist Party at this time was still convinced that the revolution was impending. Its suggested slogan during the steel strike was "Make the strike general and seize state power." Cool. Foster was brought closer within the party's orbit. However, after Earl Browder invited him to attend a conference, I'm just reading the Wikipedia page to you. Sorry, I don't know that that's really that useful. But it's not getting to. So the trial had to have been, I mean, if it was talking about St. Joe, if it was taking place in St. Joe. The trial must not have been much of a big deal, but I've discovered it. Yeah. Yes. Okay. April 3rd, 1993 was a Tuesday. Let's see. Yeah. I don't see anything. The trial would have started probably before April, so it's on a different page. I don't know if it's really worth looking at because it just doesn't seem like it was a big deal in history. Doesn't even show up on its Wikipedia page as something that happened. So I'm sure it happened, but it just must not have made any big waves in terms of case law and precedent and I don't even know. I really just want to know what the trial, what was he on trial for? Maybe he was on trial for agitating, basically for unlawful, what is it? Unlawful gathering. Where is that? That basically it was like meeting. Yeah, it doesn't. I read it. I just don't remember now what the specific wording was. And I can't find it in the document that I was just reading, which is a bad sign. Oh, unlawful assemblage. Under the criminal syndicalist law, which carries a maximum. Criminal syndicalist law. I would like to look that up. Criminal syndicalist law. Michigan, 1923. Criminal syndicalism has been defined as a doctrine of criminal acts for political, industrial, and social change. Interesting. So, the key terms in criminal syndicalism statutes had vague definitions. Criminal syndicalism became a matter of public attention during and after the World War I period, and has been used to stymie the efforts of radical labor movements. During the 1910s, the public was hostile towards leftist ideologies and deemed social radicalism un-American. Government officials on the state and federal levels ordered arrests, imprisonments, and killings of people who challenged industrial capitalism or made militant demands under the pre-existing economic structure. By the year 1933, over 700 convictions of criminal syndicalism were made. Organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union believed laws on criminal syndicalism were aimed to punish doctrines or memberships in unions. I mean, that seems to be pretty true. Like maybe they weren't aiming for unions, but they definitely weren't going to get anybody but unions in there, probably. Well, I wonder if Foster shows up in this article. He does. So what I'm getting from this is that he was an organizer, sort of a radical, but he was no Eugene Debs. So that is, oh, geez, I've gone way long. Hello, Ciento, to my one viewer. That is this day in Flashback Friday, and that was actually Tuesday, so that's fine. I, again, won't be streaming tomorrow. It is Saturday tomorrow, which is unfortunate because there are a lot of words that start with Saturday or with S, so I could have come up with a lot of really fun alliterative things for Saturdays and Sundays, but we wouldn't want that now, would we, Mr. Potter? Have a great Friday, a great weekend, and I will see you all on Monday.